Owen, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
No problem. Pleasure to be here at this early hour.
Yeah, early now it's like what 8 a.m. in Ireland.
Yeah, 8 a.m. It's not too bad. I
Yeah.
gave up my Saturday morning for you, Asna, so
Oh,
it's all
that's very
good.
nice of you. That's very nice. Well, you know what? I was just looking at your Instagram and I saw this picture. Do you see it?
Y- Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I got
What
cupping
is it?
yesterday.
What is that? I can
Um,
see it on the fighters all
uh,
the
uh,
time now.
yeah, it's I got physio done, so at the end, so I got rubbed out. My back gets a little bit tight. I'm getting old these days, so my
Uh,
back is a little bit tight, my hips are a little bit tight, and my shoulder. So I got a massage, and then the cupping kind of just brings the blood to the surface and gets blood flow through the area that's after being worked. So
got it.
yeah, it's very good. Feels nice.
Yeah, because I start seeing these things on the backs of the fighters lately.
Yeah,
Well, that's I was always curious what it is. Seems like
yeah.
it's
It,
some.
it, it looks worse than what it is. It actually, I
Yeah.
find it very relaxing. I find it nice. You can feel the blood pumping through the areas that have been walked. So I enjoy it. I enjoy it at the end of the session.
That's cool. That's cool. So
Yeah,
are you watching fights at all lately, or like how's the?
yeah. I've been watching Fight Island. I'm gonna watch Bellator now. Just as soon as I get off here, but now I don't know the results around the Bellator, but I will watch them, and then I'll watch Fight Island tomorrow as well. Yeah, so I'm keeping up on things. We were a bit strung out for MMA for a while there through the lockdown here in Ireland. There was nothing on. There was no fights, but now they're coming in fast. It's great.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they reopened and they did quite good job. The UFC in general, like right? It's quite
Yeah,
impressive
yeah,
that they.
yeah. It's great, and it's great for the fighters, and it's great for the sport to keep some normality, and they're doing their very best. All the tests that they have to run and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, no, it's great. I'm delighted.
And which fight are you looking forward to on the UFC card now tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow night, I'm looking forward to Gustafsson and um, Verdum, and I'm obviously looking forward to Tail and Whittaker. Um, yeah, I
What
don't
are
know.
your
I think I
picks?
think I think um, I think Gustafsson might take Verdum. I think he's a bit younger. He's fresh. He looks good at this new weight class. It's the Whittaker and Tail fight is a tricky one. Um, I'm delighted that Tail took this fight. Tail still has no fear. He goes out and he fights anyone. He's not afraid to take a challenge and up his game, and a win over Whittaker puts him right back in for a title shot, right into a title shot contention. So I like where he's coming from, but Whittaker is a tough fight. It's very tricky. Um, regards to his last fight with Adesanya, I don't know. I think he might have just got consumed by the presence that is
Yeah.
Adesanya. Like Adesanya is a phenomenal fighter, but he's also very like he's a very imposing character. He's flashy. He comes out. He does all the breakdancing. So I think the moment might have got to Whittaker because he didn't really show up. So if it's the Whittaker that showed up in the Adesanya fight, I think Till might take it. But if it's the Whittaker that we're used to, it's going to be a very difficult fight. But I'm gonna back Till. I like Till. I think what he's doing is he's going about it the right way. He's taking challenging fights, and he's on the rise. So let's go, Till.
And he's hilarious too. Did you see his Instagram? He just,
Oh,
he's
yeah, God only loves God love his manager having to monitor that Twitter or that Instagram because you never know what you're gonna get. It's hilarious, but he's just being himself, and that's all you can be.
yeah, yeah. So you said Ireland was all in the lockdown. Like, how's your gym doing? Are you guys reopened or are you still
My
in the
my
lockdown?
gym reopened there about
Congrats.
what 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so
Nice.
delighted. Yeah, it's a tough time. 3 months of lockdown wasn't easy. And then I was just sitting around doing nothing. I started doing Zoom classes for some of my students and stuff like that. Just fitness classes. I run a thing called MMA Fit, and it's just like MMA striking drills and sprawls, all the fundamental movements in mixed martial arts. but they're solo drills. So I was doing that in the mornings because I was losing my mind. My wife was like, you're bored, you're angry, you're very short. And then I started doing the training every morning with the class, and I was getting my own little bit of training in, so it helped.
So wait, how does the Zoom class work? You just like we're talking right now, same thing?
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
I
interesting.
set it up on a tripod, um, and I go through exercises here, and everybody goes with me. 40 minute
Interesting.
kind of hit workout, high intensity workout. A lot of fun. There's a couple of them on my Instagram that I just threw up to show people what we were doing.
Huh.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. It works. It's nice.
I saw a few people, a few coaches actually offered the private lessons via Zoom. I'm like, this is very
Mm.
interesting now. You can do it
I
like
I
from
do
any
that.
part of the world.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Really? So,
So the way.
so
Go ahead.
if anyone wants to have a session with you, what do they do? Reach out to
They
you?
just go. Yeah, just go onto my website, coachowenroddy.com,
That's
and
cool.
they can email me there and get through to me. And then basically, there's a couple of things they can do. We do like a live PT through Zoom. So let's say you're in a gym or you have a small gym at home, and you got a boxing bag, or you want to focus on your technique. I'll have a look at your technique. I'll correct it. We'll record the session, and then we'll review the session. Or you can just send me videos of you sparring or anything like that, and then I'll look in. I'll give you pointers, and I'll send the pointers back. I do that even with opponents. I could look at your I look at your opponent. Let's say you have a fight coming up. I'll look at him. I'll see some of the what I see. He might be susceptible to and stuff like that, and then I'll send you back a little breakdown of what I think might work. So
So you,
plenty of little things.
holy shit, you're almost doing this Zoom cornering, huh? That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's
well,
very
like
interesting.
game plans, fighter analysis, your own technical tuition and stuff like that. Yeah, so we do a lot of stuff.
That's very creative. That's good to
Mm.
hear. So how is it different to have your own gym versus being in SBG Ireland?
It's a lot more stress. That's first off. Yeah, I've always had my own gym. I've had my own gym for many years, but it was kind of a part-time thing.
Hmm.
Um, but 2 years ago, I was trying to juggle it all. I was trying to juggle three kids and walking out of my gym, walking out of John's gym, teaching his kids class, a striking class, um, you know, helping the fighters, helping the professional fighters. I was doing so much, and it was just too hard for me to do it all. So 2 years ago, like I said to John, well, it was nearly 3 years ago. I said, John, look, I'm gonna have to, eventually leave your gym because I want to do my own gym. I don't want to. John's gym is on the other side of Dublin, so I travel all the way to the other side of Dublin, do my classes, travel all the way to back home, teach my classes, and then go home and see my kids for 5 minutes in the evening. I also taught in another gym on Saturdays and Sundays, so it was very tough. But yeah, the only difference is one, I'm a little bit more motivated again now.
Hmm.
Uh, I have my own fighters coming through. I've got a lot of amateurs, young amateurs, amateur world champions now. I've
Oh, nice! Congrats.
two, I have three amateur world champions, four amateur world champions, sorry, and then I have two amateur silver medalists, a couple of bronze medalists, and then I'm starting to break into the professional scene. I've got 4 or 5 professionals, 6 professionals now at the moment, and building nicely. They're fighting on some big shows, Bellator and Brave, and a lot of good shows. So I'm enjoying it. It's great.
That sounds fantastic. Congrats, man.
Mm,
It's well deserved.
yeah,
And
long
with
time coming.
with this amateur fighters, are they all trying to go eventually to professional or not necessarily? Some of them just stay
Um,
amateur.
well, the amateur world champions, yeah, they're looking to go professional. But then I
Hmm.
have amateurs that just like just want to learn to fight, and they don't want to fight on the world stage, but they
Hmm.
do want to fight on the local shows. And so I've got some amateurs that just want to fight amateur, and then I've got some motivated amateurs that their goal is to get to the UFC, get to Bellator,
Hmm.
become a high level professional. So I got a mixture of both.
How difficult it is for amateurs to get to these major promotions?
Um, it's not that difficult. It just takes time. You
Mhm.
know, I always say if if you're motivated, so you're willing to train twice a day, every day, and you train smart, you don't get injured, then anyone can do it. Once they start young enough as well, it's a little bit harder. It's not impossible, but it's definitely a bit harder if you're starting at 30. You know,
Mm,
if
yeah.
you're 30 and you want to go to the UFC, I mean, it's and you have no previous experience, it's going to be difficult. But if you're motivated, you work hard and you train smart, and you don't get injured. Injury is the big one for me. If somebody's training twice a day and they're listening to what I'm telling them, um, and they don't get injured, then they can do it. You know.
It hasn't been always this way, right? I think
Mm,
it's there are a few people from Ireland that actually built that sport there, and you one of them. It's when I think of Irish MMA, I'm sure there is more to that, but I think of
mm,
like four people kind of pop up in my head. It's
mm.
it's you, it's John Kavanagh, it's obviously Conor, and Artem, who's
That's that's I appreciate that. That's a nice gesture. Yeah. Irish mixed martial arts came a long way. When I started training, there was a couple of other people that were at the forefront. So John was my coach. Um, there was Andy Ryan. There was maybe Dave Jones and Dave Roach and a couple more guys. A couple of guys up north, Davey Patterson and Tom Lamont and stuff like this. So these people that I would have known, and people in Ireland would kind of know these guys. But these were the kind of the first group of people that started mixed martial arts, that started looking at, instructional videos of you know, Marco Ruas and Hoist Gracie and all of this stuff. And I started training with John Kavanagh and Andy Ryan in a little small gym in Charlestown. A group of them just came together and we're just figuring out this sport. And I train there every Saturday, and then the gym kind of closed down, and John had a small little shed in Phibsborough, and I started training in the shed, and it was a bit mad. Everyone just killed each other. John was ahead of the game in Ireland and how he taught and what he was teaching, but it was still a bit bizarre. It was still just kind of come in. This is a technique. What do you think of it? Let's kill each other, you know. And then it was from that John started building his team, and Andy Ryan actually had his own team going on the north side as well. And there was a couple of teams popping up, all coming from that core group. And and then I was fighting professionally, and then a group kind of developed in John's gym, and it was Connor, it was Paddy Houlihan, Chris
mhm.
Fields, Ashland Daly, Artem, Peter Queely, Brian Moore, Cottle Penn, like there's loads, a lot more, Philip Mulpeter, and this kind of core group started to get very motivated. And Connor came along, and Connor was like, we were all very good fighters, but we never had the belief like Connor had the belief.
Mm.
And Connor came along and he's like, I'm going to UFC. He was he just turned pro. Like he still wasn't the best at jiu-jitsu. He was phenomenal at jiu-jitsu and wrestling now, but at this time he was just, a phenomenal striker. He's like, I'm going to UFC. I'm going to beat everybody. And we were a little bit, look, Jesus, Connor. Now it's great that you believe in yourself, but like, are you mad? Or he just kept knocking people out. He kept saying what he was going to do, and then he kept doing it. Then he became the Cage Warriors champion. And we were like, Jesus Christ, man. He has this belief in himself. And look at what he's doing. And we're training, we're doing the same work he's doing. So we can do it. And then the whole team just had this belief. And he kind of just, he kind of made everyone believe. And everyone started getting to the UFC and stuff like that. it was just a phenomenal time for Irish mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys looking back and you are fascinated at that time. It sounds crazy.
Yeah, it was great. It was great for for Ireland, you know, because we had that night in Dublin in the Tree Arena where we had, I think it was 6 or 7 people off the Irish MMA scene coming from that Irish MMA scene fighting on the UFC that night and all winning. Every one of them got to win.
Oh
We
wow.
went we went 7-0 that night. With with Irish fighters, and it'll go down in history as one probably the greatest night for Irish MMA as a whole. Yeah, I know Conor has definitely a lot more greater nights, but that night just for Irish MMA was a landmark moment, you know.
Do you remember how you met all the guys? Like, and I want to primarily focus on those three that I originally mentioned. John Kavanagh. How did you meet John?
So as I said, the first time I met John was down in Charlestown in Andy Ryan's gym. So they were just I so basically how I found out, because I was watching UFC and UFC 1 and 2 on tape, and I was trying to find out where to do it. Nobody knew where you could do it in Ireland, and I was still in school, and I was looking in my school library, and there was judo mats down, and there was this fella showing the kids how to do arm bars. I was like, oh my god, that's cage fighting. That's the stuff that Hoist Gracie does. And it was Andy Ryan that I was speaking to, and Andy Ryan says, yeah, yeah. I says, where do you do it? I want to do it. I want to learn how to do it. I've been looking everywhere. He says, I do it in Calesta. Come down on Saturday. So I went down that Saturday, cycled down from Ballymun to Calesta, and Andy Ryan was there, John Kavanagh was there, Dave Roach, and a lot of other guys. And I was like, I seen all these guys, and she says, yeah, come on in and do it. And I actually asked John, could I train with him, because he was the smallest, and I was like, I fancied myself. I was like, I could be him. He's only small, the rest are real big. And John was like, nah, I'm gonna work with this guy and that guy. I was like, all right, now, but then I just watched John submit everybody in seconds. I was like, this is bleeding crazy. So I had a chat with him, and we trained there for a couple of weeks, and then John had his own gym in Phibsborough, and another guy, Dave Roach, which is also from where I grew up in Ballymun. And I knew Dave Roach from a couple of years previous. Um, he says, I'll bring you into John's, and we can train in John's and stuff. I was like, lovely. So I started training in John's as often as I could. And I couldn't pay the fees, so John let me clean the mats. So I used to clean the mats every week, and he let me train for free. The gym in Calester, Andy's gym, closed down for whatever reason. So I just started training in John, and I trained under John, learning MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. My whole career as a MMA fighter, and then I coached for him for many years after that.
What's crazy? I believe your base is jiu-jitsu, right? But
Yeah.
when I look
Well,
at your fights, though, and you teach striking, and when your fights are primarily stand-up fights.
yeah. No, so it's, well, when I say my background was primarily it was jiu-jitsu. I enjoyed jiu-jitsu. The way the sport evolved in Ireland was, the way the sport evolved all over the world was, you needed to get good at jiu-jitsu quickly, and John was brilliant at jiu-jitsu. Now we covered everything when we trained with John, but he was just so good at jiu-jitsu that everyone got really good at jiu-jitsu quickly. So on the Irish scene, if you were training under John, your jiu-jitsu was going to be slick, and I got really good at jiu-jitsu really quick, but I loved to strike. So as soon as I learned how to do jiu-jitsu, and I knew I could always fall back on it, then I just decided I'm just going to stay standing with these guys and learn the hard way. Now I mean, I had a lot of very good striking coaches as well. I trained with an Irish Thai boxer, Paddy Clint, for many years. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from John. Um, and a couple of years later, the Hoyland brothers were in SPG, and I learned a lot from a couple of the Hoyland brothers as well, which are professional boxers. I traveled around to boxing gyms and I'd done a bit in boxing gyms. I tried to pick it up everywhere, but I loved striking, and I was pretty good at it. So that was the kind of path I took.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
at what point when did you meet Artem? When did he join?
Uh,
Did he join the team?
yeah, he joined the gym when we were, I believe it was, I don't know whether Artem was in Rathkill. He might have been, but my earliest memory of Artem is in the Long Mile Road, in John Sim in the Long Mile Road. And it's just a fighter. So Artem would come in. I was still fighting and sparring at that time. And Artem, you know, he was still relatively new. He'd done a bit of training over in Germany, I believe. But he just liked to fight. So he'd come in. I was teaching the toy boxing and kickboxing, all the striking classes. You know, I think it was 4 times a week I was teaching it. And Artem would be there every night, and he did what he would do what, you know, what was asked of him, and then he'd spar, and then he was always Artem, hands down, in your face, taunting you and trying to take your head off. And I had many spars with Artem, and everyone had many spars with Artem, and it didn't matter how much you hit him. He was always there in front of you, and he was very tricky. He had that kind of Prince Nassim style where he taunted you, and if you got caught up in his game, he'd have a lot of success and he'd hurt you. So, you know, for the first while you're trying to figure him out, and he's sticking his head out there, and you're taking bait, and he's slipping and cracking it. So, you know, early on I had to realise that don't play that game with Artem. So, you know, for me, when I used to spar him, I used to just kick the legs off him and try and frustrate him and keep it simple. Because if you got emotionally invested with Artem, you were eating some big shots and leaving with a headache, you know.
So, were you preparing him for the bare knuckle fights with Paulie and others, or it was somebody?
No. So I'd left the gym just prior to that.
Mm.
I'd worked with Artem for I'd say every one of his UFC fights. I worked with him extensively through the tough series, and through all his fights coming through, you know. But then I'd already left the gym at that time, and he was working with Davey Jones, the boxing coach that's over there now. He's a very good coach, so I didn't do any of the bare knuckle fights for him. But I you know what, geez, that bare knuckle fighting is a tough sport, man.
Yeah,
It
that's
suits
crazy.
Artem. It suits Artem because he's tough as nails, but it's hard to watch, man. It's hard to watch. You just get caught up, you know. It's a tough one, and also the sound of the strikes, it doesn't sound very nice.
I know.
You know, bone on bone and bone on meat and flesh. It has that grooving sound, but you know, people like a blood sport.
I remember there was a debate that if UFC didn't use gloves, there wouldn't be so many knockouts, all this stuff. Because technically, the people are saying that because of gloves,
Mm.
they kind of there is padding that allows people to not be knocked out, so they receive a lot of punishment. But then,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
but
on.
then this bare knuckle boxing came along, and you see people's face being cut to like
Mm.
people
Pieces.
yeah, people kind of realize like, yeah, it actually was a bad idea. So it's good
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. The idea of the gloves obviously is more for cuts,
Mhm.
you know, because you know one exchange and one big cut over the eye stops a fight. Do you know what I mean? And then it was as well, I believe it was for your own knuckles,
Mhm.
people breaking their hands and stuff like that. So, and then also, it definitely looks a little bit more sportsmanlike when you have some sort of protection on your hands.
Yeah.
So, you know, the look of the sport when the gloves came in, I felt it definitely looked a little bit more unique. It started to develop its own look, you know, its own. It had its own gloves, and you know, at that time everyone was wearing the Malitudo shorts. So, you know, you could definitely distinguish a mixed martial arts fighter to a boxer, to a toy boxer, to a traditional martial arts. an MMA fighter had a defined look. So that the cuts and protecting your hands, yeah, that's why they brought the gloves in. You know, bare knuckle boxing is going a different route, and then also with the bare knuckle boxing, I believe the shorter rounds, um, the the rules that kind of state you need to keep moving forward and not backing up. I know you'd lose points for backing up um in 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 um in bare knuckle boxing. So it's designed to keep two people in the pocket throwing down. So that's why people love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a tough sport.
Mm.
And the last person in this trio, like, do you remember how you met Connor?
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah, same again. I think Conor came down the first time in Harold's Cross, which is one of the older gyms. With Tom Egan, I think came down once then, and then he started make it like he signed up pretty much in Rathcoole and was there ever since. And I remember Conor hasn't changed since day one. You know, the first time I met Conor, he, you know, very confident, very confident in his hands, because he came from boxing, young and motivated, and you know he was phenomenal when it came to just hands at the start. And if you know, I would have been one of Conor's sparring partners early on for years. And if you just tried to stay hands with him, he'd hurt you, you know. Um, but you'd use your kicks against him, and then over a period of time, he was getting good at defending kicks. And then you're like, fuck it, you just take him down because he didn't really have much wrestling or jiu-jitsu. And then he started getting better at wrestling defense, and then you nearly shoot a takedown, sprawl, and sit through and get him to the ground and keep him on the ground. And then he started learning jiu-jitsu and started getting good everywhere. But the biggest thing for me, when Conor, when I met Conor, was his belief from day one. Like, you go in and you'd submit Conor in jiu-jitsu, but he'd still believe he was the best fighter in the world. He was just like, I'm still the best. It was just like, I think he just, in his mind, he was like, it's only a matter of time before I'm better than everyone. He just always believed he was the best. Like, I remember Conor I think he'd signed to Cage Warriors. I think he was only a couple of pro fights in. And Aldo had fought Chad Mendes. And it was one of the best fights we'd seen. And everyone was talking like Aldo was untouchable. And I remember talking to Conor the Monday morning and saying, did you see Aldo? He was phenomenal, wasn't he? Conor went, I'd knock him out, guaranteed. I'd get my hands on him, I'd knock him out. And I kind of walked off to myself, and I was like, is he bleeding delusional, or is he mad, or what? Like, this is the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, the best. And without a second thought, like, and when somebody's just lying, or when somebody believes what he's saying. And Conor, like, he didn't have to think about it. He believed it straight away. He had already seen flaws in Aldo's game when Aldo was at the top of his game that nobody's seen. And everyone's inclined to do that, including myself. You see the best fighter in the world now, like, let's say Adesanya, like, phenomenal. You look at all the pros, Conor doesn't. Conor finds that one little hole, and he's like, I do this. And then, even back then, he was like, nah, he's too aggressive, he's too wild. I'd ping him. And then in the fight, he did it, So, yeah, Conor's belief made everyone believe in the gym that we were in SPG at that time. His belief in himself and his ability made us all believe in ourselves and our ability to reach that UFC stage,
So that belief comes from, as you said, knowing yourself and knowing the opponents, or it's just almost, as you said, almost delusional idea that you are the best? Like, what's?
Yeah, well, I think the belief at the start, comes from maybe a work ethic. Like, yeah, kind of believed in himself, but I think I think by believing himself, he knew he was going to get there, and he knew he was going to do whatever it took to get there. So that was the belief at the start. And then, no matter what, knowing that, you know, once he, you know, prepared and worked his ass off and made those 2 sessions a day and dieted and never missed a session, even if he was sore, or, like the whole lot of us, like when that team was coming up, people that know about it in the Irish scene, that SPG team coming up, the kind of the old school guys. It was a team of killers that never missed a session, that you know had grueling sessions every day and worked their ass off, and you know just you know it was just a mad time. That team believed in itself because of its work ethic, and we knew who we were working with, and we knew with the person facing us, and that was another killer that wanted to take our head off. So you better be switched on, or you're getting switched off. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think Conor's belief came from that work ethic, his belief in his ability, and his belief that no matter what it took, whether he lost or not, like, 'cause he lost early in his career, kind of, but it didn't stop him. Came back, fixed the mistakes that he made in the fight, and moved forward. And then he had a loss early on in his career. Got caught in a leg lock in front of all his friends and all. It was a hard loss for him to take. I cornered him in that fight, his first loss, and you know, we went there, we put hands on his opponent and hurt his opponent, but Conor was still a striker back then, and he didn't address the leg lock early enough. He was too busy on. Conor was still a fighter, so what I mean by that was he wanted to kill his opponent, and while he was punching, laying down fire on his opponent was treating it as a competition and had a strategy to get to the leg. And it was too late for Conor to realise that his leg was trapped, and he tapped. But that was a tough loss from his first time he fought. He fought in his own area in Crumlin with his whole family there, and it was a very tough fight for him and against a tricky opponent. But that didn't stop him. He came back. He learned the jiu-jitsu game. He got better on the ground game, and went on a tear. I think he went 5 or 6 fights, KOs. TKOs. But he lost again. That didn't stop him against Duffy, you know. And one difference between that loss and the first loss he went missing. I think he just got a bit disheartened, and he was young, and he went missing for a couple of months and came back. And then he went on that tear. Then he lost against Duffy, and he came back on the Monday. That was a turning point for me. He was back on the Monday, fought on the Saturday, back on the Monday. And I was like, how are you feeling? And he says, look, it is what it is, Owen. I need to immerse myself in jiu-jitsu. I need to love the sport. I need to love jiu-jitsu for me to become really good at it. And he did. He just focused on jiu-jitsu for a very long time, put the gi on, start grading, start competing in jiu-jitsu competitions, went to Iceland, spent a while over there, and came back with a love of jiu-jitsu. And then, you know, the rest is history. He just tore through everybody there.
Yeah, that's definitely, his rise was meteoric. That's crazy. Were you were in his corner in the last fight, right, with Cerrone?
I wasn't there, yeah.
That shoulder bump, did you guys plan that stuff? What did you guys come up with?
No, we didn't plan it. Well, it's not. We didn't plan it because it's something that Conor's been doing for years. It's not like it's hard to say it now, but it's a shot that's gonna annoy. For most part, it'll annoy you, and it'll get reactions out of you, and it'll get you to transition from that, you know, over under position. It gets you moving your head, and it allows Conor the space to you know, either break or continue on in his clinch game, where he's been doing it for many years. It was just that Cerrone, I don't think, was expecting it, and hadn't seen it. Like, he's done it in other fights, in other fights in the UFC as well, but just not to that extent. And I just don't think Cerrone was even thinking of it. And Conor was just hitting him with so much power, and that shoulder, cracked him in the eye and swelled up the eye and stuff like that, and just kind of surprised Cerrone. And then I think it was the pace that Conor set at the start, and we all knew this. I just don't think Cerrone expected it. I think Cerrone thought Conor was going to ease into the fight, especially the way, they were very friendly before the fight. And I said it to Artem Lobov. I said, don't think Conor's going to come in there slow and take it light and ease into the fight. I know he's very friendly and he respects Cerrone and there's no bad blood, but you could be Conor's best mate in there, and I know this from spars. You could be very close to him, but as soon as you're in a cage with him and there's a closed door, it's a different person you're facing. There's somebody that's in there that's going to do whatever it takes to win, and he's going to put it on you. So no matter how nice he is before, and he'll be very nice after it as well, but it's a different. There's a different person you're fighting in that cage. There's a very smart, tactical, controlled, aggressive fighter in the cage, and that's whether you're sparring them, that's whether you're fighting them in the cage in regards to people you bring in for fights, or whether it's in a professional bout.
And I think he said he retired. I don't think that's the case, but you can comment on that.
He's retired for the moment. I think.
Yeah.
You never know. But Conor loves the sport.
Yeah.
He really loves the sport. He loves to compete, and he likes to prove that he's the best in the world. And I believe Conor is the best in the world, even now, with consistent training and a motivated Conor. And motivated Conor to fight, not with all the other businesses, not with having to deal with all his other ventures and stuff like that, and training and enjoying his training. I think he's the best in the world. I just think his fight IQ is better than anyone else's in the world. Yeah, he has losses and whatnot, but his ability to come back from losses, that just shows how good he is as well. I believe he's the best in the world. I think, a focused, motivated Conor is the best fighter in the world. He believes it as well. So, he's retired now, and whether it's forever, I don't know. Only he knows that. But yeah, and he's enjoying. I think it's a good thing for him as well to take some time out and enjoy his young family coming up now. He's got 2 young kids, yeah. and his girlfriend Dee, and kids grow up so fast. I said this yesterday in another interview, and kids grow up so fast, and you don't want to miss it either, So I think he's doing the right thing. He doesn't need to fight, but I'd imagine if there was a big fight to come around and everything got back to normal and there was a big crowd there and there was a super fight, no better man to come back out and smash somebody, Kind of, I think he'd be more than happy to do that. But whether that comes, I don't know.
Certainly, hopefully it comes soon.
Yeah. So everybody loves a McGregor fight. No doubt about that.
Yeah. Enough about Conor. Let's talk about you, sir.
Yeah. I'm here to chat. So everybody loves to talk about themselves.
I want to learn a little more about you. Like, obviously, we know you as a coach, but you also had a quite successful career as a fighter.
I fought for many years on the European scene and on the Irish scene, and I fought people that came over from the US and from all over the world to fight in Ireland, and so I loved my career, and I did cut it a bit short, but I loved every minute of it, and I have actually no regrets now. So yeah, So what do you want to know?
You spoke a little bit about like that you saw UFC and you wanted to learn how to do it. At what point you actually decide to become the fighter? When did you realize it's going to be your career?
So I seen UFC 1. My neighbor gave me a video. My brother did martial arts, traditional martial arts, for many years. He became a brown belt in Shotokan, and I did Shotokan for a couple of months as a kid, and then I played football, soccer over here in Ireland. I played for a team called Ballymun United. It's weird. I didn't even want to play football. I was watching my friends do the trials out just in my local park, and the manager turned around and says, "Get up off your ass and get on the pitch and start playing." And I kind of panicked, and I just did it. And then I played football for years, and I was a very good footballer. I got player of the year for many years. I was a defender. I was fast. I was tough. I was only a small, skinny kid, but I'd beat you to a ball, and I'd go all in on a tackle. So I was all right, and I did that for years. But I kind of got a little bit bored, where I was always interested in martial arts. I always wanted to know how to fight. I always thought I could fight as a kid. I always got into fights as a kid growing up. Just in the area I grew up, you know, in Ballymun. Ballymun, it'd be known as a very rough, very run down area and stuff like that. With tough kids, and you know, tough upbringings and stuff. So I had plenty of fights growing up as a kid, and I always enjoyed fighting and the idea of fighting, and you know, figuring out ways to beat people. I always thought I could beat everyone. So eventually I found mixed martial arts, and then I started training under John. And within a year I was like, I can do this. I can be a professional, and I can make 50, 60 grand and buy a house. That was it. That was my goal. And get to the UFC, make enough money to buy a house, and I'm done. Within a year, I got my blue belt, I think. I was just training. Now I was training nearly every day. Within 2 months, John says, clean the mats, you can train every day. So I was training every day, and I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu, which was a huge thing. It was probably about 10 blue belts in the country. And then, probably about a year or so in, I'd fought, and I had my first fight, and it was pro fighting. There was no elbows, but other than that, it was ground and pound. There was everything. And I had my first fight, and then you just kept fighting, you know. And I did pretty good. You know, I was ranked number 1 in Ireland for many years. I was ranked number 2 and 3 in Europe for a good few years. I had a good record. I fought on a promotion, mainly over here. I fought in a promotion called Cage Contenders, which was a big Irish promotion that got a TV deal, and which was bringing the Irish MMA scene to Europe. We were on TV with European fighters coming over, and American fighters coming over, fighting us, and you know, we were getting big crowds, and you know, I was one of the main fighters on that show. I'd bring in the biggest crowd in Ballymun. Like when I fought, the whole of Ballymun came out. You know, I'd sell 500 tickets to a 2,000 seater arena. Nice. And it was Ballymun, and it was a gang of, you know, 500 people from Ballymun. They'd be loud, you know what I mean, and they'd be rowdy, and they'd be, you know, they'd get behind you. So you know, just before Conor came on the scene, Conor was coming up, still knocking people out as he did, but I was on the main card and fighting main event, and I was putting people away and having great fights, and yeah, so I had a great career, and you know, I was kind of leading the team at that stage. You know, technically, as an all-round fighter, I was classed as the best. That's what the boys and girls, obviously, Ash was there as well. They would have said I was the best, and they would have thought I was going to be the first guy to get to the UFC. But I started slowing down a little bit, not fighting as much, and I fought a UFC veteran at the time, defending my belt, and got a big win over Shannon Googity. And it was a moment where the Irish MMA was like, Jesus, we can fight these UFC caliber guys and win. And then I went to Cage Warriors. Then after that, I had one fight at Cage Warriors. I fought Wilson Hayes, who did very well, who's still doing very well in the UFC. I lost to Wilson Hayes, but I had good moments in that fight, and I thought I was doing very well. And then, unfortunately, I had to retire due to injury after that fight. And I was very upset because I wanted to get to the UFC. I thought it was very close. Conor was the two-way champion, I think, at that time, and he was about to get signed. We knew he was getting signed. I had that fight in Cage Warriors. I lost, but I knew if I had two fights, you know, I was gonna get to the UFC, because that fight, Wilson Hayes was on a promise to get signed to the UFC. For me at that time, I think I was on a 7-fight win streak, and I fought Wilson. Nobody wanted to fight him. I fought him. I was like, fuck it. If I beat him, I'm going to be signed as well. I didn't, but I was like, look, doesn't matter. Get 2 wins on Cage Warriors, and you're there. But I had an injury that I, you know, could have been potentially dangerous if I continued to fight for many years, and I probably wouldn't have got signed by the UFC even if I had those 2 fights and 2 wins, and I had a family and stuff like that, and I was like, it wasn't worth my while, you know. If I hadn't had a family, I would have took the risk and just kept fighting. But with a family and taking punishment and stuff like that, with a significant risk of doing damage in the long term, I chose to just call it a day. It was a hard one. I checked every avenue. I got people to contact the UFC to see if they take somebody on with the injuries that I had. They couldn't say yes or no, and it was a rough time for me. But I was very down at that time, and I took a couple of months to see if I could get there, and then basically they were saying, no, you wouldn't. I was told by a couple of people that if they were, to clear me to fight, they wouldn't clear me to fight. So I was like, look, it's not worth it. It's a small part of your life as a fighter, maybe 10 years. And what you do in 10 years, if what you do in 10 years can have a significant, can have a significant effect on your fight, on your life when you're older.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It wasn't worth it for me. So so I decided to retire. But for me, I loved my career. I had a great career. I loved winning. No better feeling on earth. No better feeling on earth than getting in there and getting the win. It's the best drug on earth, and I still miss it. I still miss that feeling. And now I'm cornering people, and it's the same buzz, but it's you're not in control of it. You know what I mean? So you don't know the outcome. Where when I was fighting, yeah, I didn't know the outcome, but I knew I was in control of myself, and I knew I was going to die in there before giving up. So yeah, it was good times. Good times.
How is it feeling when you winning that belt, when it's being wrapped around your waist? Can you describe it to someone who never been there?
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. Like it's a sense of achievement. You work for so many years, to prove to yourself more so than anything else that you can do this, and that when it gets tough, you're going to stay in there. And with losses and learning from losses and coming back from them and stuff like that, to have that moment where at that time that cage contender belt was the biggest belt for Irish people. You know what I mean? That the Cage Warriors belt, and for me to do it and to get that belt and win it, I was like, lovely. And then I defended it twice as well, and I defended it against people that were coming through, like the lad that fought Ben Davis was knocking everybody out, and he was a formidable opponent, and he was the first fight after it was like, fuck, Jesus, no easy fights here, like this guy could take my head off, and put me asleep within one shot. So to get in and defend against him and beat him, and then it was another challenge. It was a UFC veteran that was brilliant, and a very tough fighter and a guy that was very big. Like, I mean, for me, I fought all my career at 66, and I walked around at 64 kg. I never cut weight.
Wow.
You know, I had to eat, and like I remember weighing in for the Shannon Googly fight and drinking a liter and a half of water, and having 2 bananas before I jumped on the scales. And he came in, and he was struggling to get onto the scales. He was dehydrated, and he was bigger, like in height. So I used to always believe that they can't have everything. You know, if they're taller than you, they're going to be skinnier than you, and they're going to be narrower. So start smashing those limbs and break down the frame. If they're bigger than, stocker than you, or you know, if they were carrying more muscle, they'd be shorter. So keep them at range and pick them off and give it around while they're carrying that little bit of weight around with them, and they'll slow down and they won't have that sting, and then beat them later on. So we always would have a strategy. But Googly was the first guy I ever fought that was taller in height, rangier, and you know, he probably came in at bleeding 75 kg fighting me that night, and I was 65 kg again, like, you know what I mean. But
Let
that's when I after that fight I decided to cut weight and fought at bantamweight for the Wilson Hayes fight, you know. But I should have fought at bantamweight, probably even flyweight, because at bantamweight, when I fought Wilson Hayes at bantamweight, the morning of the weigh-ins, I had my breakfast, and I had scrambled eggs, and a pint of water before I jumped on the scales as well, you know. So my idea was I would cut weight. I would cut whatever weight I needed to cut 2 weeks. My first 2 weeks of camp, I do an 8-week camp. The first 2 weeks, I would have the most stringent diet you would ever think of, and I'd burn that fat off me, and I'd get my weight down to a weight that I was going to sustain for 6 weeks. And that's the way I used to cut weight. Not like, I don't know. It probably is. I'd say it's a good way of cutting weight. I never had any issues cutting weight around like that. I was never dehydrated, and I always felt fresh in fights. So that's the way I used to do things.
So you eventually transitioned to coaching. How was that transition for you? Was it natural, or it was like a...
Yeah, no, it was natural. Like, even with John, so I used to teach. While fighting, I was still a coach. I coached John's kids class for years, and the striking classes while I was still fighting as a professional. I always knew I was going to make that transition, because from teaching kids, you know, I found I was a patient coach, and you need to be patient when you're teaching people. And some people don't have the patience, and some people don't know how to, you know, teach a technique to people. They don't know how to, you know, translate what you're shown on the mat, in an easy way, in a broken down form to kids or to adults. So me teaching kids for a long time, I had to learn how to do that quickly. So I've been teaching for many years, and I always knew that fighters, you know, professional fighters' career is short, but a coach's career can be for many, many, many years. So the transition into coaching was always going to be a natural thing for me.
If you weren't MMA fighter and coach, what would you be?
I'd probably be driving a forklift in a warehouse somewhere, you know. I don't know. I would probably have found something. I don't know. No, maybe I would. You know, I was working as well. I was working a 9 to 5, and I used to, you know, fill trucks. I'd drive a forklift and, you know, fill trucks and pick orders and all. Not a great job. You know, career-wise, you know, it's a tough, grueling job. It's a 9 to 5. It's up at 7, finish at 5, and do something that I never really enjoyed. But, you know, when I was doing that, at one point, I chose to give it up. I was doing the 9 to 5, and I was asked that I want to do like a apprenticeship, you know, a calibrator. So it was a job that could have got me decent money, like, you know, within 4 years, I could have got a decent, could have had a decent career and had a kind of an apprenticeship behind me.
Mhm.
But I chose to leave the job, and they were laughing at me. They said, "Look, you're leaving a good job on. You could be making, 800, 900, pound or 800, 900 euro a week, you know, after tax if you work here for 4 years." Um, but I just said, "No, look, I'm going to be an MMA fighter. I'm going to be a professional fighter." And they were laughing. And now I talk to all the guys that are still in that job, and they message me and they say, "Jesus, Owen, you were right in leaving. You know what I mean? You had an amazing MMA career. Now you're a coach, and you've coached in the biggest fights in the last 15 years, the biggest fights on the planet. I've been part of all of them. So I made the right choice, but I made it work for me as well. It wasn't easy. It didn't just come to me. I made it work for me when I was kind of forced to retire. I mean, I could have easily just said, fuck the sport, and I'm just going to get a normal job. But I was down for a while, and I was like, "What are you going to do, Owen?" I think I gave myself 2 months. I was like, "All right, Owen, there's no way of fighting. So what are you going to do? Are you going to give it up, or are you going to fucking become a coach and become the best coach you can be?" And I says, "I'm going to become the coach." I says to myself, and then I just immersed myself in coaching, and I became a decent coach as well.
Yeah, you're being humble. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
what's the if you can compare like becoming a champion yourself, right, and seeing your student to become a champion, how would those two feelings similar or different?
Um, that they're pretty much the same. Although although a coach, like, doing it yourself, the person doing it deserves more of the credit than anyone.
Hmm.
Like, the coaches will help, and good coaches will find what you're good at, and help you develop a game that suits that style, and that suits a fighter's personality, and their attributes and stuff like that. But the fighter still has to go in and do all of that, and they have to do it on the night, and they're on their own in there. Yeah, they've had a team with them all the way, supporting them, and they have a team in the corner supporting them. But the fighter has to do it. So when I was a fighter, you get all the glory. It's
Hmm.
amazing. It's yours, and that's one thing about individual sports. Like, it's all on you in there. Like, team sport, you can hide a little bit, and if the teams, you can have a shit day, and the team will still win. But when an individual sport and you're in there, if you have a shit day, it's all on you. But the victory is all on you as well. So I think individual sports people, they're a bit greedy. They want it all from themselves. So but as a coach, watching a student win, you played a part, and you've helped them there. So there's a bit of that win is yours, but most of it's theirs. And what you get instead of that is you get a proud feeling. You
Yeah,
get you
fatherly
admire.
almost, right?
Yeah, you admire what they done, and what they went down and achieved, and you see what suffering they've went through, and you watch them overcome it, and then I can relate to what I've overcome in my fights, and it's amazing. It's amazing,
Hmm.
but you don't get all of that. You don't get all of that
Yeah.
success, and you don't get all the praise. You're not the guy that everyone comes to and is calling you a champion. Is building you up for that week, because it's only probably a week you get of it after a fight. You get a week of everyone. There's no better feeling. You're walking around with your head held high, but then people forget. You know, like if you get into trouble, you get a week of shit, and people forget. And when you're on top of the world, you get a week of being on top of the world, and then people go back to
Yeah.
back to their life. But it's great. It's a great feeling, both of them.
Let me ask you this then, like, so looking back at your career, like, as a fighter and as a coach, give me the most memorable moments of both, like as a fighter and as a coach.
Um, for me, as a fighter, um, obviously, when I defended my belt against Shannon Gould, because it was a very tough fight. I was in a really bad position early on in the fight, and like within 2 minutes of the fight, I was Shannon Gould was on my back in a full-on rear naked choke. It was fully on, fully extended, and I almost went unconscious. But I came through that, and I came through a very tough first round and got getting out of that fight and got a bit beat up, and to win the last 2 rounds and get the win was a huge moment for me, because it was a testament to my grit and determination, and to that idea that never say die idea, like that I always kind of instilled in myself. I was always willing to. I never thought I was the best fighter in the world at that time. Like my goals was, I'm the best fighter at the featherweight division in Ireland now, where I'm the best fighter in cage contender now. I had smaller goals, and at that time, one thing I always believed in myself was, no matter who I'm fighting, I'm in there till the death. And you have to knock me out or put me asleep to stop me. Or otherwise, I'm there in your face trying to do the same to you for as long as it takes. So I had that mentality, and that's what got me through a lot of fights and got me through that fight. So that fight for me was the defining moment, and it was a big moment as well for Irish MMA. It was a moment that people realised, we can do it. And then, Jesus, as a coach, what fight? All the fights with Conor, and so many fights, teaching amateurs as debuts and watching their journey. It's always been a big one for me. But I think I don't know. I keep changing my mind. They're all amazing moments, but the Mendez camp was a huge one for me. It was a very tough camp for me as well. Like, we went over to, my dad was dying of cancer, and he hadn't got long to live. And I remember talking to my dad. I remember talking to Conor, and Conor was like, "Owen, I need you for the camp. I need you with me. I'll do whatever it takes to get you over here." And I talked to my dad, and my dad was he was bedridden at that stage, but he was like, "Go do your thing, Owen. Like, I mean, this is you're helping, this fighter, fight for a UFC belt, fight at the best, at the top tier, and you're in his corner, you're his coach. So go do it." And I went over to Vegas. We were over there for a month, and then I got a phone call. My dad was dying, and he was like, he didn't have long. So I said, "Conor, look, I gotta go home." And he's like, "Do your thing." He says, he thought it was one of his managers at the time. He says, "Get him on the next flight home." I was on the next flight home. I fucking missed the flight. I don't know how I missed the flight. I had a bit of a breakdown in the airport because I missed the flight. But Jesus Christ, the airport got me on the next flight. I took 3 flights. I got home 3 or 4 hours later than I would have anyways. And I had a chat with my dad, and he was like, "How's the other fella doing?" And my dad used to give out about Conor because he always thought Conor was too cocky. He always thought he was a great fighter. I was like, "How was that fella? Like, how was he getting on?" He says, "He's great. He's in phenomenal shape. That's great." He says, he's gonna do his thing anyways." And over 5 days, my dad passed away, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And then I think it was less than a week later, I was back on a plane and out for the remainder of camp. I came back for the last 2 weeks of the camp, and straight back into it, straight back down the corner, and Conor did his thing, and that was a moment. It was a defining moment, because not only was it a tough camp for me, it was a very tough camp for Conor with his knee and his both knees, because like when we came back, I was rolling with him, and his other knee had popped, and he'd strained his LCL on his good leg, and his other leg, which he had surgery on, was pretty bad. Then his weight cut was the scariest. was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. You know what I mean? He was so bleeding. He was so drawn out in that weight cut, and I was bleeding, terrified. I only watched my dad die. I thought he was fucking gonna die in the weight cut, but he did the weight cut, and he went in and done it, and the crowd spurred him on, and then the next day he rehydrated. But to be honest, I don't think he rehydrated as good as he should have, and he didn't have the team. You know, he didn't have that team monitoring the way he does now. And then what he overcame in the first round and all, it was just a moment that, you know, for everyone to get through that moment, for Conor to get through was unbelievable. But it was a moment for me as well to prove that it was all in on camp, and even no matter what, I still tried my best to give him 100%, even when you know I was going through my own shit.
Yeah, man. Well, you made your dad proud, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd like to think so, you know. Yeah, he was a good man. So
I don't know how to transition from here, man. You put.
yeah, it was a difficult one, yeah. But yeah, no, that's life, you know what I mean. But he wanted me to do it. Like, my dad was very sick as well at the Dennis Seaver fight. That was in January. He was given 6 weeks to live. Cancer had spread from his lungs to his brain and stuff. He was given 6 weeks, and I didn't want to do, like, we'd done the whole camp because we'd done the camp in Dublin. And Conor says, look, I want you to come over and do the corner. And I was like, oh, don't know, Conor. I said, my dad could fucking die any time. And the same again, my dad says, go do it. I'll be here though. And well, I have a good friend, Professor Dan Healy, who was looking after me dad. And he always, you know, I owe Dan so much, because I trusted Dan. And if Dan would say, Owen, I'll look after him, and he won't pass while I'm fucking here, and while you're away, I'll make sure of it. You know, now obviously that can happen throughout the night, but if Dan got me in the van was happening, he would ring me, and I was there. So he says, I'll ring you if anything happens. I'll ring you and we'll get you home. And Conor have you on the next flight no matter what to get you home. So I did the Seaver fight, and it was grand. And my dad was 100% for 6 or 7 months. And then even with that time, on the Mendez fight, we're like, Dan was like, you need to get home on the next flight, because he's probably got, you know, 24 hours, 48 hours. And my dad still fought for 8 days or something, or 6 days. So he was a tough
fighter.
Man.
Yeah.
What a fighter! Yeah, I got a bit of my grit and determination out of him, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was good times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I will move to if you don't. I just really,
yeah.
Kind of
move. Yeah, no, that's good. Let's move on. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. So what you watch? Obviously UFC now. Outside of your in Bellator, like all this promotions, outside of your fighters or Irish fighters, who do you really enjoy watching?
At the moment, Jesus, yeah, who do I enjoy watching at the moment? I can't even think off the top of my head. I like watching. I like watching the amateur scene. To be totally honest, now, I like watching the IMAFs, and because like the standard of MMA fighter, amateur MMA fighter coming up is phenomenal, and this is the next wave of people. So I like watching the amateur scene a little bit. In the UFC and let me see, in the UFC, I can't even think off the top of my head because I'm drawing a blank here. I like Khamzat, that came from Brave, who's fighting. He's fighting
tomorrow.
A guy. Yeah, he's fighting tomorrow night from a guy from the north of Ireland, a guy Reese McKee that I know pretty well. Reese is very tough, but just watching him against John Phillips, you know, would be a teammate of mine and a very good friend of mine, and the way like John Phillips is no joke, and his ability to keep John down with this kind of heavy wrestling style, and then watching him on Brave. I think I had one or two fighters on the same card of him in Brave. I'm watching him knock his opponent out in Brave with good technical striking. Um, it was serious to watch. He's brilliant. Sugar Shane.
O'Malley. Yeah.
Sugar Sean O'Malley is
He remind
phenomenal.
he reminds me of Conor a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah. His range maintenance. That's where I see with him is his ability to keep people at the edge of range is something I teach an awful lot of to all my strikers. The ability to maintain range and draw shots, and then give fakes and give feints to your opponent and read reactions. And if there is no reaction, then you go to fire. If there is a reaction, you go to counter. And O'Malley's ability to do that is phenomenal. And for the weight class that he fights at, to have the pinpoint accuracy to spark people out it does remind me of Conor, and I really like watching him. And his flow, his transitions between kicks and punches and spinning kicks, and he's got cat-like reflexes. So he's unbelievable to watch. Really, really enjoyed watching him. Who else did I see recently that I was very impressed with? I enjoyed watching the Moroccan kickboxer there the other night. Oh Jesus, Lazzez, I think his name is. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's
phenomenal fight against a knockout merchant. Sat in there. Sat in there and threw down and then showed a complete game by just stealing the rounds with takedowns and really good. Yes, so there's a lot of talent coming through. Really enjoying watching MMA at the moment. So it's good.
But if you look back, who do you think, like, this cheesy conversation about GOATs, who do you think is the true GOAT?
There's loads of them, loads of them. All of those champions, all of those people that were at the forefront when the sport was growing. Like BJ Penn was a huge one for me. If I'm honest, he fought too late into his career, because he'd nothing to prove. But I met BJ, and he's a mad guy. He loves to fight. He's a fighter, and it's hard to get rid of that. You know what I mean? You don't lose that even when you do get on. But him coming up, he was one of these fighters that was, just so good everywhere and good hands and knockouts and just phenomenal. So he was a big one for me. GSP was a huge one for me. Just his ability to transition between striking and wrestling and do that against better wrestlers than him,
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Obviously Conor was just I think MMA goes in cycles, and you get the dominant grapplers like Hoyce. He came in, and grappling was the, I don't want to say flavor of the month because it's a bit of an insult, but grappling was the sport that dominated, and then Hoyce was there. And then it went from Hoyce to the wrestlers, you know what I mean? And then it was like the likes of Randy and stuff like that. And then it was from Randy to the strikers, because first it was the jiu-jitsu guys, and then the wrestlers knew how to defend against the jiu-jitsu guys, so wrestlers dominated. And then the strikers knew how to defend against the wrestlers and the jiu-jitsu guys, and then strikers became the dominant fighters, and you had Chuck Liddell and stuff like that. And then it went back on itself, and it was back to good strikers with good wrestling with phenomenal jiu-jitsu. And then it went back to just the strikers. And now at the moment we're at the, for most parts, and looking at the amateur scene, we're back to wrestling. But we're back to kind of more of an Eastern European style wrestling, which is an unbelievable ability to finish a takedown in the middle, the American wrestling I felt was shoot a power double, run up to the cage, and take them down against the cage, and it was dominant for a very long time. But now, look, I think the Eastern European style of wrestling is a little bit different. It's more just looking at the amateur scene. It's more,
Technical,
you
right?
know, shoot. Yeah, it's a bit more of a flow. Like I wouldn't say more technical because there's
Gotcha.
unbelievable technique in running people to the cage and then having a strategy to get people down against the cage. But this is just a different strategy that people ain't used to, which is shoot a double or shoot a low single, and then turn the corner and transition to the back, and then when they transition, knee tapping and pinching and knee tapping and getting the pin, and then coming up onto the elbow and catching wrists and having the ability to just stay heavy on top and having beautiful transitions, and then also doing that against the cage. Like Khamzat did a phenomenal against Phillips. It was hard to watch because John is just tough as nails. So he's never going to give up in there. But his Khamzat's timing and his transitions were phenomenal. Habib is known at the known most for that style, but that's coming true. So that's something that well, everyone is trying to figure out. But like everything, we will figure it out, and then the game will evolve again. That's MMA.
Yeah. Owen, I have a quick blitz for you. I'll ask you a quick question and give me a quick answer. How about that?
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
What's your favorite movie, man?
Favorite movie? Go Bloodsport. Van Damme.
I wonder why. Favorite song?
Favorite song? Beautiful. It's looking like a beautiful day, boy. Elbow.
Oh, nice. What's your favorite car?
Favorite car? Range Rover.
What's your favorite sport outside of MMA?
Favorite sport outside MMA? Soccer.
Yeah. Favorite country to visit?
Favorite country to visit? America. Yeah, I love America.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah.
come back. What's the first item on your bucket list?
First thing to do on my bucket list, at the moment, see Asia. Haven't seen Asia yet.
Not.
So I need to go try do a little bit, see Hong Kong, see Singapore, see all this that side of the world.
That's pretty cool. And the last question, what advice would you give to young kids who want to become MMA fighters?
Outwork everybody that you train with, and train smart. Don't get injured.
Hey Owen, thank you very much for being available. I appreciate it, man, and best of luck to you, man.